Marshall in the middle.
I read this as somebody that's still in the Army, that's still trying to figure out his way and his place and try to find the desk to sit in, every day at school kind of thing. And so I see that searcher in you. So here we go. Sometimes I wonder what my purpose in the Army has been. The institution is so large and cumbersome and filled with differing viewpoints and priorities that it can be easy to get lost inside its vastness and forget the critical importance of just one person. But as arrogant as that may sound, I do believe that I am important to the Army, that I give it as much as it gives me. Professional happiness occurs when that relationship continues to stay in balance, that both sides feel as if the other is holding up their end of the bargain.
So let's just pause there. I think from my perspective, Stephen Green, who was the culprit in the Black Hearts saga, was a private. He was PFC. But that one PFC affected the course of hundreds of lives, if not thousands, brought a lot of discredit to the Army, had an outsized impact for the person that he was. And that begins to sort of get you to start to think about your impact. Green's one guy, I'm one guy, you're one guy. What's your place in this huge institution that has 300,000, 500,000 people? And that first paragraph begins to really get you to start to notice you have your relationship to the institution matters.
I'm in total agreement.
Yeah.
I'm in total agreement. We were all in the military. I guess it was a leverage thing. I never thought about it the way you put it on paper there, but as long as you were, for me, it wasn't always like that. I was always just a go, go, go. And I was going to do it right the first time because I didn't want to have to go back and do it again. But as I got up in the rank, I kind of see where it's leaning towards, I'll give you this as long as you take care of this. And I'm not having to worry about your end too, because that's what kind of spoiled my idea of, a good leader.
Well, it becomes you matter. Like, it's not just this role that you play. And we're going to talk a lot about role playing over the conversation we're going to have, because what this journey in the blog is going to take me on is the idea of authenticity versus role playing. And we'll get to that.
Right.
But key is you went into a position, and the institution defined that position for you. Told you what your roles and responsibilities were, told you where you had to stand and where your office was, and did you have a desk? I mean, for God's sake, at some point, if you got your own office, you thought you'd fucking made it. Or if you had a parking space, you thought that was, something critical in the Army that we grew up in. So now you've got the institution on one side defining the space for you. And then you've got you on the other side, and you got to figure out how you matter. And for most people in hierarchical organizations, the organization does a lot of that defining for you, right up until it doesn't. And all of a sudden, that one day, like me, you're like, wait a minute. You don't like me anymore, but you said you did, and you told me I was okay. And so what you got to do is figure out, well, okay, what's my value? So I think the beginning paragraph, Will, to your point, is to talk about, I knew that I had value, and what's going to become more apparent is value separate from.
I love it. I love it.
So
I
that's paragraph 1.
I have a concept that I talked about a lot as a first sergeant and talked about a lot all the way up through my career, was that I was in the best unit in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I was in the best unit in the Army, because I was in it, right? My squad, my platoon, my battery, everything about whatever unit I was in, it was always the best unit in the Army. And the only reason that I could figure out why it was is because I was there. And that's an important thing. And you have to, you know, this goes back to our original thing, Jeff. You got to drink the Kool-Aid, right? You have to believe, you have to inculcate those values. And that Kool-Aid is great until it don't work no more. That's one of the things, Jeff, that is so wild about your story, and it's so nuanced and amazing. But here you are, a superstar, and then all of a sudden it's like you're like totally not a superstar. It's like it was like, you know, I don't know. It was, they opened up the closet and found something that really wasn't there, but there was, they didn't know what else to do with it. They didn't know what else to do with it. So
and that's a very important point. Okay, is they didn't know what to do with it. And so you can put your faith in the institution, but the institution at some point will run into circumstances that it doesn't know what to do. And I think it's important that because I think so many people's identity gets wrapped up into their identity within the organization, that if the organization confronts something it doesn't know what to do with, it doesn't have an answer, and it needs to make it go away. And it needs to have some other way of dealing with it. So I think that's a very huge point.
Marshall in the middle.